Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
What you are about to see is graphic. All the images are real. The scenarios are true. It is part of the reality of the world in which we live. Since the genesis of humanity, we have struggled with our relationship to nature. In our natural desire to control destiny, we have become both the heirs to nature's fortune and the victims of its force. It is within this struggle, when humans and nature collide, that disasters strike. San Francisco, California. It is late afternoon in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Residents are hurrying home to join the rest of the country in watching the two Bay Area baseball teams battle for a World Series title. But as the world watches America's pastime, it is suddenly thrown a curve it will never forget.
Instantly, you've got this adrenaline to try to save yourself, and instantly you realize there's no place to go. You're just helpless. Think you're fine, you're going along, all of a sudden, the earth beneath your feet is no longer reliable. There's no place to run, no place to hide.
A mighty beast rising from its slumber, an earthquake strikes with no warning. In 6 seconds, the reality that once was no longer exists. Confusion echoes through buckled buildings. Panic runs through cracked streets. Chaos rules.
And then all of a sudden, all the traffic came to a stop. Dead stop, 5 lanes across, half a mile deep. It's a big parking lot, and nobody knows what's happened.
The Bay Bridge is frozen in fear. A well-meaning bus driver reroutes commuters back towards Oakland. Among them is Jim Wheaton.
I remember turning to my passenger and saying, "Watch out for breaks or cracks in the pavement." And as I said that, the little orange car comes from behind me. Just, I don't know if I can say it, like a bat out of hell. Pulls out around me, gets in front, pulls back, and then it starts to accelerate just as I saw the brake. And she just kept right on going, off into space, and disappeared.
A car driven by a 23-year-old student hurls directly into a 50-foot break in the bridge. She dies on impact. Her severely injured brother-in-law is trapped next to her. The car dangles perilously on the sheared-off edge of the bridge. Time is of the essence. At any moment, any one of the aftershocks could shake the car loose and send it plunging into the concrete abyss. Rescuers frantically work to pull the car to safety. Finally, after 20 long minutes, they succeed.
There's nothing in your life that can prepare you for watching a car disappear, and then the sound of it at full speed hitting a brick wall. I mean, the earth just opened up in front of you. The thing that you always count on is this big, solid bridge, and all of a sudden it's just air beneath you all the way down to the bay.
Since the beginning of time, the Earth has been in a constant state of change. Whole continents have moved thousands of miles. It's through this shifting that these ravenous events occur.
We're having an earthquake. I've just taken a hit.
We've been hit with a major earthquake, trying to figure out where this has been centered.
We have, 100 or so faults that we know about just in the Los Angeles area that are capable of magnitude 6s. If we look at the Northridge earthquake here in California, it wasn't that big an earthquake, but it released that energy right under the San Fernando Valley. And we had 500,000 people living directly on top of that earthquake.
The 6.7 quake kills 63 people, leaving the megacity in a state of shock. One year later to the day, halfway across the world, a 6.9 quake rips open the earth beneath Colby's 1.5 million unsuspecting residents. The quake mangles the city into submission, cutting off vital services to nearly 1 million households. The nation best prepared to handle earthquakes learns that no one is safe from the wrath of these massive beasts.
The old city of Kobe was built with very narrow streets, and the fires that broke out after the earthquake just couldn't be extinguished because fire engines couldn't get along those narrow streets.
Thousands of people can do nothing but watch as their lives go up in flames.
Kobe was a lesson for the world and for the Japanese because the Japanese felt that they had better earthquake resistance than in fact they had.
Even the great Hanshin superhighway, the pride of Kobe, falls on its side, reminding us that even our grandest designs are no match for the power of the shifting earth.
Earthquakes can occur almost anywhere in the world, but the places that are most prepared are the places that have them all the time, as gentle reminders that these things can happen.
Even though Mexico City is no stranger to earthquakes, nothing could have prepared it for a 7.9 tremor. The equivalent of 50 atomic bombs erupted beneath the city. 9,500 people died.
Mexico City is built on an old lake bed, and the worst possible soil conditions.
In less than 4 terrifying seconds, the powerful blast collapsed hundreds of buildings and left 50,000 people homeless. The citizens struggled day and night, searching for any signs of life.
Earthquakes don't in themselves kill people. Buildings kill people.
Of the 100 super cities or so that exist around the world, approximately 40% of them are on areas where we know we've had an earthquake. They are not prepared. They don't have the earthquake preparedness in structures and public awareness.
And they will have, at some point, a much larger earthquake than we probably will ever have here in Los Angeles.
Even New York can fall prey to the beast beneath our feet.
I mean, we see buildings falling down in New York City without earthquakes. It wouldn't take magnitude 5 under that city, and we're going to see a lot of damage.
Although the city is built over a small fault, we have foolishly dismissed the possibility of a quake under America's mightiest metropolis. We must remember what the past has taught us, that it is when we least expect it that the world comes crashing down around us.
Next, a flood of biblical proportions destroys parts of eastern Canada. The horrific choices made by victims of a raging inferno. And some of the worst air catastrophes ever caught on film. When Disasters Strike returns.
Water covers 3/4 of our planet. Its exploitation is at the core of our survival. Its formidable power to provide is only matched by its awesome ability to destroy. Port of Busan, South Korea. A raging sea batters a massive freighter, trapping its crew. While they are only feet away from shore, the fury of the sea leaves them facing the desperate choice: jump or perish. Would-be rescuers on shore are rendered helpless as the thrashing sea rises to swallow its prey. One sailor is down, another is ripped from his hold and is swept into the churning water. His life jacket only delays the inevitable. The final crew member weighs his options. Finally, he makes a reckless leap of faith. Miraculously, the ocean spares him, the experience forever etched in his mind, a terrifying testament to water's raw power. Off the Arctic coast, the Alaskan Monarch is fishing for crabs when it makes a costly error. The ship strays into freezing waters, and a crushing sea of ice surrounds it. Acting quickly, the Coast Guard moves in to rescue the Monarch's stranded crew. They airlift 4 of the men to safety. The captain and the chief engineer remain on board in a desperate attempt to save their ship. A powerful wave crashes over the ship, washing the men overboard. The 2 men are battered by huge blocks of ice, only seconds away from hypothermic shock. Amazingly, as if the sea were showing mercy, they survive. Even in the human domain of solid land, water inevitably merges with our destiny. For centuries, the province of Quebec, Canada, has been shaped and nurtured by winding rivers and sprawling lakes, its residents enjoying a harmonious coexistence with water. But a single downpour of biblical proportions shatters that peaceful union. As dams already filled to capacity start to overflow, residents scramble to stem the surging tide. Search and rescue teams descend into the downpour, furiously working to evacuate 18,000 people.
We train to rescue people from a crash, from an accident, but there's no way we can be prepared for something like that.
As day 2 breaks, the water rises. Every attempt at containment fails. All man-made constructions are helpless. There is nothing in the flood's way that can stop it. On the second night of the flood, Quebec resident Richard Roy and his 4-year-old daughter are attempting to return home.
I didn't have time to react. All I remember is that I saw something that was a color other than the black of the asphalt. Suddenly, there was no more road.
A swollen creek has turned a section of the road into a massive sinkhole. With no warning, Roy's car plunges into the expanding crevice.
At that point, we found ourselves smack in the middle of this gushing river. And before I could unfasten my little girl, she had water up to above her eye level. With every breath she was taking, she was swallowing water. I got myself on the roof of the car to try to pull her out. Then we saw headlights approaching.
The oncoming automobile plunges into the chasm, just inches from Roy and his daughter. All 3 passengers die on impact.
That's when I started to really be afraid. I was thinking this hole is going to get filled up with cars because there is no one to signal them to stop.
Roy desperately searches for an escape and spots a nearby tree. There, father and daughter remain before they are rescued, watching as more drivers hurtle to their death.
When I watch her asleep, I can't look at her for too long because it moves me too deeply. It moves me to tears.
The great deluge lasts for 3 days and 3 nights. The oversaturated land loses its will. Whole sections of earth disappear. Entire neighborhoods are washed downstream and reduced to settlement. In the end, the water reclaims the land it once covered and spares little else. 4 months of rain have fallen in 72 hours. The epic flood saturates 84 towns, causing $700 million in damage. Those structures not completely demolished are soiled with the permanent reminder of water's fiercely unpredictable and unforgiving power.
Next on When Disasters Strike, hurricanes and tornadoes wreak havoc. Cameras capture the horror of a towering inferno, and man and machine collide with catastrophic consequences.
It is known as the Finger of God. Others call it the devil's tail. But whatever name used to describe a tornado, the nightmare of its eloquent fury can resonate for a lifetime.
Forecast that morning was very bold. It said outright a chance of large and damaging tornadoes.
Get away from the windows! Get away! Get away! Get away!
These vicious demons possess winds as great as 300 miles per hour. They can swell to a mile wide and speed through fields at 100 feet per second. They have been known to drive blades of grass through wooden posts and release 1 billion watts of electricity, the equivalent of energy produced by 2 large nuclear reactors.
To know when you're looking at that footage that people are dying, to know that people's property, their homes, their cars are being churned up by this thing, it really makes you think how dangerous these things are.
The fierce Andover tornado carved a path of destruction 42 miles in length.
Hurricane Andrew, which most of us saw on television, the winds in there were estimated around 150, maybe 170 at tops. So you can imagine almost doubling that wind speed and putting that into a concentrated area.
In Pampa, Texas, we are witness to the raw power of a tornado. 2 pickup trucks are launched into the air. They have been crushed and flattened inside the frenzied funnel. They are ejected from the funnel at a height of 100 feet and at a speed of 90 miles per hour.
It's undescribable. It's total devastation. I mean, there's no mercy, there's no mind, there's no conscience.
Arkansas Sheriff Donnie Joe Yancey is one of the few people to have been thrown by the devil's tail and survived.
And that's the first time I've ever really been scared.
The murderous Izard County tornado first snaked through neighboring Stone County. It then ripped across a river, killing 5 people. Then, as if looking for prey, it headed north up Highway 9.
I look back this way, and right back here, just a straight line across here, it was just solid black. You know, it was just, there was no gray, it was just black. And it was like somebody took an eraser and just erased everything from here back.
As the monster sweeps over him, the sheriff's Jeep begins to rock, its windows shatter. Before he can take cover, the twister lifts him into the air, sweeping him across the road.
I couldn't touch it. I could see the ground, you know. It felt like you could just almost reach it, but you just couldn't quite get there. In situations that I get into in this line of work, you've got some control. You know, I mean, there's always something you can do. Even if you do something wrong, there's always something you can do. But in essence, there's nothing. The fullness of it didn't hit me until the next morning when I got out of the shower and I wrapped the towel around me and I just shook. It was just all over. And I got weak-kneed and I sat down and I cried. I cried like a baby.
Ultimately, the savage fury of this tornado claims the lives of 7 people and injures 30 more, destroying lives and property without bias.
I think nature is not cruel in the human sense of being cruel on purpose. I think nature is doing what it's done for millions of years. Before there were people there, and now there's people in these areas, and that's just the way it works.
You can see the rain just hit me in the face here.
There's no way to get out right now.
We have tremendous problems out here.
100-mile-an-hour winds.
Hurricanes. Spawned from a collision of hot air and water, these wind-filled behemoths, mouths wide in rage, spout walls of water and oceans of rain as they engulf and ravage the land. For those in their path, they leave no escape. The Hawaiian island of Kauai sparkles in the Pacific, an emerald paradise in a sea of turquoise.
So we were very unprepared. The first one wasn't that bad 10 years earlier. And we just thought, we'll hunker down, and we did it before, we'll do it again. And we took the sirens lightly because I just denied there was a hurricane coming.
Like many residents of Kauai, Wickman and his family take refuge in their home as Iniki's overwhelming power swells.
I actually walked into that room and I looked up and you could see the roof doing rolls.
At its full force, Iniki unleashes all of its might. 160-mile-an-hour winds lash out relentlessly at the small island. Ultimately, the Wickmans share the same fate as thousands of others.
Thinking back, I was laughing. I mean, you hear the tape, I'm having a great time, it sounds like.
The whole top of our house is gone!
And that kept me from literally breaking down and crawling into a corner. But I was that close, and I don't put that lightly anymore. Yeah, it's a strange thing to be confronted like that.
And then it stops. Kauai's embattled residents emerge from their ravaged homes and shelters to assess the damage. But there is an eerie stillness in the air.
All of a sudden you realize it isn't over. It's only half over.
In one of nature's cruelest tricks, the chaos starts all over again. The brief respite is Iniki's eye passing directly over the island. Once again, Kauai is battered by the storm, but this time the gale-forced winds have switched direction. Despite $1.6 billion in damage and 8,000 people left homeless, the worst storm to hit Hawaii in a century did not take a single human life.
The thing I've learned is you have to have a respect for nature. You can't forget how unforgiving, how powerful, how unpredictable, and how beautiful storms are. I mean, there are many things about storms that are beautiful and they'll take your breath away. And then, you know, a moment later, you may be looking at horrible devastation.
As far as nature goes, you never think about how strong nature is. And you still get kind of emotional about it when you think about, you know, hey, I could have lost everything, my kids, my wife, and, you know, everything. And it's a thankful feeling, too, you know, that you're allowed to go ahead and stay here and you know, live.
Mother Nature, it reminds you how little we really are, how close to being exterminated, I feel. I mean, natural disasters, geez, what can you say? It's the one thing I don't think anyone counts on, you know, as far as what problems you might face, you know, until you get hit by one, everything else just seems unimportant afterwards, you know. You have a different outlook on life.
Helpless victims jump to their death as they try to escape a raging inferno. And we witness some of the worst tragedies in aviation history, all caught on film when disasters strike.
ready to be scorched by its touch. It breathes, it expands, and like all living things, it must consume to live. The moment we underestimate its power, it engulfs us in its fury.
All I was hearing was my mind saying that I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna burn to death.
It is early afternoon in Honolulu, Hawaii, when Engine Company 32 is dispatched to battle a raging fire at a refinery. A cluster of oil tanks spew flames 150 feet into the air, threatening to blow at any moment. Kenneth Yamamoto and his fellow firefighters desperately struggle to prevent a fatal explosion.
It was a fire that had erupted through a fuel line leak. Normally, we wouldn't be so close to the fire. We would stand back and let the foam rain down on it. We had to be in there to contain these little fires before we could put the major fire out.
As they douse the flames with foam, it seems to have an adverse effect. Then the situation intensifies.
And before we could react, it just ignited. The flames just erupted all around me. I dropped the hose, turned to run, which is your natural instinct. I didn't know where I was running. And I tripped over piping. All I was hearing was my mind saying that I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna burn to death.
But as Yamamoto falls, 8 inches of water on the ground offers a glimmer of hope.
And I decided my only chance of getting out of this alive was to hold my breath and possibly wait for the fellow firefighter who was on a line next to me to rain foam down, put the fire out, and I could walk out of it. But as it turned out, the water wasn't deep enough. So I was forced to stand up, and luckily the direction that I dove was onto dry land.
Unbelievably, Yamamoto escapes the fire's wrath with only minor burns.
If we weren't here, fire would be the most charming thing, the friendliest thing. I think it's us that makes it a devastating force.
We knowingly build in nature's most combustible environments, denying fire its natural innocence. Then we watch in horror as our homes and lives turn to ash.
There's no bias in fire. It wants to consume everything and everybody.
Sao Paulo, Brazil. 25 stories of extremely flammable materials, the ultimate setting for disaster. A tiny short in an air conditioning unit sparks an inferno. 600 people trapped on the upper 14 floors rush for safety, but there are no fire escapes. Some try and descend in elevators, only to be cremated within minutes, their ashes later found in the rubble. Others make their way to the roof. They wave frantically for help, but watch helplessly as attempts to land helicopters are thwarted by heavy smoke. More cling to balconies, desperate to find a way to escape the flames. Victims are confronted with a horrific choice: jump or be engulfed by the flames. Fire trucks make their way to the scene, but their ladders can only reach the 7th floor. As the flames start to die down, 80 people are pulled off the top of the building by a large Air Force helicopter. Seconds later, the roof collapses. 188 people perish, 50 of them leaping to their death. 345 people are injured. Fire is a fundamental force that in the course of filling nature's destiny strikes on its own. Only when it comes in direct contact with humans, however, does it become catastrophic.
When man pushes the limits of speed and power, inches separate life and death. The price we pay for progress when disaster strikes.
To control our relationship with nature, we have developed a complex, ever-advancing technology. This new power has also fueled our folly. Through these advances, it is our unique position to at once enlist and challenge every physical law of nature. In the process, we have unknowingly created a force that rivals nature itself. Ramstein, Germany. It is the day before school starts. The U.S. Air Force is hosting its annual air show. Among the 200,000 spectators is 16-year-old Samala Laverne.
The air show's here. It's just a yearly thing. Everybody goes.
10 Italian jets start to perform an extremely difficult stunt called Arrow Through the Heart, in which one pilot breaks formation and flies into the heart-shaped trails of his colleagues.
And we were really looking forward to it because it was supposed to be a really, really neat stunt. It started to hit me. He's too low. It just didn't seem right.
The fireball instantly incinerates 61 people.
You see the smoke and you see the flames and people are running, and there were couples that had been, just cuddling, watching the show, that they had to actually pull the bodies apart. And I think the first couple of days of school, it was a body count.
76 people die, 695 are injured.
They didn't come knowing they were going to die. They just came for a good show.
So there's a price to pay. You reap the benefits, but you pay the price. I mean, there's no question we're better off with technology than 100 years ago, but the technology is more complicated. It's harder to master.
Toronto, Canada. A rookie Indy driver is 3 laps from the finish when suddenly his car goes airborne. The cockpit rips from its chassis. The miscalculation of mere inches proves fatal for the driver, as well as for a course worker hit by the flying wreckage. A packed crowd of tourists watches a popular boat show in Ohio. speedboat makes its scheduled approach to spray the audience with water. Due to a steering malfunction, the boat plunges into the stands. 23 people are injured.
Everything interacts with everything else. Everything potentially can affect everything else. Everything can be cause and effect.
Two recent helicopter crashes illustrate the unpredictability of both humans and their machines. In the ultimate bid for greater power, we have recklessly cracked the core of creation.
For the first time in human history, man-made crises can now rival natural disasters in their impact, their scope, their intensity. Chernobyl, for example.
Our flirtation with disaster becomes a reality as tinkering with the atom underscores our insatiable urge to meddle with powers we do not fully understand. The staff at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is conducting an unauthorized experiment when they lose control of reactor number 4. The reactor fuel core explodes, instantly killing 31 workers. Others discover the unimaginable. The reactor's core is burning at 5,000 degrees, melting everything it touches. Ultimately, over 200,000 cleanup workers get radiation poisoning. A cloud of radioactivity envelops Europe, while in the Soviet Union, the lives of over 3.5 million people have been affected. More than a decade later, although the Cold War is over, we must not forget that the tools of destruction still lay in wait. Disarming reminders of our ultimate folly.
Nature strikes a final blow when Disaster's Strike returns.
Full of grace and beauty, nature nurtures and inspires us. Yet it constantly reminds us that we are not a consideration in its often violent evolution. We must learn to coexist with its forces, limiting, not increasing, the potential for disasters. For as we accelerate into the next millennium, it is our obligation to understand that in nature's shadow lurks the specter of our demise.
Straight ahead on the 10 o'clock news, a fire smokes out classes for another day in part of the Piedmont. Researchers say women may have something to do with baldness. Plus, what's Halloween without some of these decorations? But the decorations have a neighborhood in Florida scared to be neighborly. Those stories and all the rest of the day's news, weather, and sports straight ahead on the 10 o'clock news.